We've never had this conversation before, and it's funny that you said that. So I launched a company with a partner that I'm about to get my patent on the first and only.
So we're the first to hear this?
You're the first to hear it.
All right.
The first and only two-factor authentication to record land records.
Wow. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast episode. You're listening to the Home Design Podcast. My name is Adam Case, your host, and we aim to educate, inspire, and connect South Florida with the industry authorities within their trade. Today, we're diving into everything title and why it's so important in the real estate purchasing process. All with the title guy, Glenn Asher of Ask the Title Guy. All right, Glenn. So we're going to be diving into something that a lot of people don't even realize what the most important part of the process is when purchasing a home. And that's all about title. But before we dive into it, I'm starting with the most difficult question of the day. And this might last the entire podcast. Who is Glenn Asher?
Oh, boy. All right. So where do we start? Let's
start out. Where are you from?
Originally from Brooklyn,
all right.
Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, and natural transition to Staten Island, where I went to high school and then went away to college in Oswego.
I was recruited by Wagner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To play
football.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How old are you? Are you allowed to say that?
I'm 40.
Tottenville is where I went to high school, and we were I played baseball.
I ended up playing football and baseball in college, but
really?
There I was recruited for football.
Yeah, so we were, our high school team was number 4 in the country.
Okay.
My junior year, number 6 in the country. My senior year for the USA Today poll. So we won 78 games in a row. It was a real organization. A lot of people went to major leagues afterwards.
Awesome.
I went away to college, to Oswego, and studied education. I became a teacher.
All right.
With a degree in history and minor in sociology.
Awesome.
And then taught high school for a couple of years, and then realized that although I love teaching and it was great, and I was a good teacher and enjoyed it. You get bounced around a lot. I went to 4 different schools in 2 years.
Wow.
Because you don't have tenure and you get bounced around. I started at John Jay in Brooklyn, then went to Grady, then Wagner. I taught at Wagner.
Okay.
And then I taught at Telecommunications in Brooklyn, which was a great school. I taught the first inclusion class with special education and then English. So we partnered up with history and English and had a double class and taught the English taught to history and vice versa, which was pretty cool. It was kind of like a pilot program.
Right.
It went really well. My brother was the principal of Brooklyn Tech for 15 years, which is one of the top schools in America. Now he runs all of New York City's technology. So education was, prominent. I went to a gifted elementary school. I got bused across Brooklyn. And high school was great. And then went away to college. And, after teaching, it was tough. You're not making a lot of money. And I found myself doing 3 things. I was teaching during the day, and then I was either coaching baseball or tutoring and bartending or waitering at night, and a couple of days a week just to make ends meet.
Right.
And, living at home, it's not easy being a teacher. It's exhausting, and you're going for your master's as well. And then I realized that the upward mobility, unfortunately, is not great, and you don't make money for a while. If you could stick with it, it's a great career because, eventually when you move on and get a pension and everything else and retire, you're set.
Right.
But it takes a lot to get there.
Yep,
You
absolutely.
have to be humble, and, I like nice things, and I felt like the harder I worked, the more I can get. So before I got into title, I went from there to Catherine Gibbs, which was a secondary school for trades.
Okay.
And I did sales, basically. So we went around to high schools across all of the boroughs and did presentations to inspire children that didn't want to go to 4-year colleges or universities to go to a 2-year school and get an associate's degree and then take it from there.
Absolutely.
And I broke all the records at Catherine Gibbs in 90 years. I basically hit my boss's quota by myself, and she had like 8 other sales reps. You know, I made my own presentations.
Right.
I always like to speak in front of people, and being a teacher before, you know, and being a real person, you know, being real with the kids.
Absolutely.
You know, not everybody's meant for school. You know,
Exactly.
My daughter's 11, and depending on her career path, maybe she's not meant for college.
Right.
You know, so you know, I'm a firm believer in getting an education in the field that you're in. Also, you know, I always say like it's important to get a formal education, but at the end of the day, the first 2 years of school is nonsense.
Right.
You know, you're going for gen ed classes. If I'm going to be a history teacher, why do I have to take biology?
Right.
Right. Like,
Right.
it's not my. I'd much rather learn something that's going to benefit me, either for the whole of life,
Right.
or for my career path.
Yeah, because a lot of it is just general education in the sense of like you just going through the process.
Of course.
At what point did you get into title?
So I was waitering. I left Catherine Gibbs, you know, after breaking records and went for my yearly review, and they offered me like $3,000 as a raise after
Right.
I brought in like record numbers. They'll, you know, typical corporate. Sorry, this position only accounts for us. You'd have to move laterally and then move up. And, you know, I was like, well, that's not happening.
Right.
So, so I got into title. And I've been with Kensington now, which is the largest privately held title company in the U.S.
Okay.
For almost 24 years.
Wow.
So I'm the longest standing sales rep at the company. I've been there since it's about 23 years.
So were you familiar with title before you made that
I
jump,
mean,
or was just like
it's not
you
something
met
that,
someone that must have talked about it or something?
you know, you don't. Title is something that is not taught. There's no, you know, you could become a notary and go to classes for it, but you know, until you're in the business and get trained by someone else, or learn the business yourself, or you know, take education classes with underwriters, whatever the case may be, it's not something that you're taught. That's why a lot of people in title have been there for a long time. Same thing with bankers, right? You know, low level loan officers that are just getting into business. You know, it's not a field that's taught. Like mortgage banking is just not something that's taught in colleges, right? So if you want to get into that field, same thing with it being an appraiser or being a surveyor, or you know, I guess even a real estate agent, right? You learn, you could take business and marketing, and those are all part and parcel of being an agent. But you kind of learn in the industry,
right?
So, and we were a national company, so you know, I do pretty much every state in the country. We have offices throughout the country. Corporate office in Madison Avenue in New York. My corporate office here in Florida. I just moved from Brickell to Derail.
Okay.
For no other reason than traffic. And
it's a lot easier to get to Derail than, I mean, you skip everything going around.
Well, you know, everyone was working out of my Brickell office when I came down here in 2016. I built it from 1 employee to 17 employees over time. And everyone was in the office, and then COVID hit, and obviously, you know, people started working from home, and now people are dispersed. I have, you know, my assistant lives in the Hamptons. You know, I have staff members that are all over Florida. The only people that work out of my office are the funders and the post closers, where they cut checks and send FedEx and do policies and stuff like that. But you know, it's not a necessity. I do miss the office dynamic, to be honest with you. I love to work. You know, I'm a social guy, so I like to work hands-on with things. But at the end of the day, there's more production done with trusted employees than traveling. Some people were traveling 2 hours a day to get to the office. It's, you know, that's production time.
Yeah.
I mean, and convenience. People have families, people have things to do. You know, as long as people are doing their work, I happen to have, you know, I always say this, I work for them. Nobody without them. You know, I can't operate without my team. I have a great dynamic. The way I've set up my staff is I have junior processors and then closers. All the closers have over 20 years experience. Most of them, almost all of them actually, are bilingual except for one on the closer side, and then the processors are, I don't want to say lower level because they're not. They just do a different job. The job description is you know, the closers kind of handle the lenders and you know, the higher level document preparation. the processors do everything else,
Right.
and they're rock stars. I mean, I have an amazing staff.
And the thing is, I mean, it's all a matter of building internal culture, and every company has their thing. But finding the people that really they're passionate, they care about the business, they care about the industry. But going into what you and I are going to be talking about, people might hear the word title, but they're not thinking about it. When people are looking to buy a home, they're thinking about their dream home, what they want to do with this, how long they, what they're going to be, they might be starting a family, building a family. They might be, snowbirds. They might be downsizing because their kids are out of the house. But I want everyone to think about this. You're buying your dream home. You're going through the purchasing process. You're thinking about the design, the decor, everything that's going into it. But what has to come first is the actual purchase. Correct. And the title is something that too many people don't know they don't know anything about.
The X factor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So let's start. What is a title?
So there's two aspects of title. There's the initial aspect, which is the title commitment,
right.
which is the actual title. Our businesses, let me start it with this. We have a very boring business.
Right.
We pull.
Hey, to your credit, you make title pretty exciting.
Thank you. At the end of the day, we're pulling land records.
Okay.
Some counties throughout the United States are online. Florida is great because everything's online. You go to other counties and you have to actually send an examiner to the municipality to pull land records. Depending on how old the house is, you have to pull a longer search. So typically, a purchase search is a 40-year search.
Right.
Then you have files that you have to do a 100-year search on because it's a townhouse in New York where it's, the chain of title has gone from an estate to a trust through death, through probate. It's just a little more cumbersome. Florida's a lot different. Florida's easy. It's online. For a refinance, It's a little bit different also. Okay. So let's talk about the purchase, business. So depending on the county in Florida, and I'll just keep it on Florida right now.
Yeah.
Certain people are designated to order and pay for title. It's all contract specific. So nothing is set in stone, but the typical county reference point is, and we'll stay Tri-County, whereas most of my business is done. Miami-Dade and Broward County are both typically purchased and paid for by the buyer. So they select. It's actually an option on the contract. And then Palm Beach County is typically the seller choosing and pay for. Okay. Now, nationally, the seller typically picks title, except in attorney states, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Those are typically buyer. But in Texas, where we have a very big operation, typically the seller picks. But sometimes things shift. That depends on whether it's new construction or not.
Okay.
So that's who picks. Title is first a report of the land records to put together a search that shows everything from the property description, the plot or the land, the legal description on title,
right? The
warranty deed of record, who owns it, and what vesting deed is, which means who's vested in title, meaning you and your wife buy it. It's, John and Jane Smith, who reside at, and then who the seller is. And that's all public record, obviously.
Right.
And then what encumbrances, or what is there a mortgage on the property, who the mortgage is with, the recording information, all of that comes into the title commitment.
Right.
The title commitment is then furnished to all parties once we get it, and typically it takes anywhere. I mean, we're pretty quick, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've closed a purchase in 12 hours,
oh, wow.
which is kind of unheard of. But as you do more and more,
they had a strict deadline. They
needed
to get done.
we had it close.
Right.
Sometimes this happens.
Right.
Can everyone do it? No,
Right.
it definitely not. We have great vendors. So we have great underwriters and great vendors for surveys and lien searches and what have you. And I'm very loyal to my vendors because they're very loyal to me. And, I don't get involved in every aspect of every single deal because it's not necessary. I have a great staff. I handle, and like I said, I'm very loyal. So if I need something, I'm going to pick up the phone.
Right.
Because I don't call bluff. And when I need something, I get it. And if it can't be done, it can't be done.
Right.
That's it. So once a title commitment is ordered, so typically a purchase contract would come over.
Okay.
And I speak to a lot of buyers and sellers myself, and we're kind of the first people, and I'm a real person. This is real property. Commercial transactions are a little bit different.
Right.
When you're in a commercial transaction, it's less emotional.
Right.
It's less drama. People that are doing the commercial transactions typically are used to it being a business decision,
right,
not emotionally tied to a property. So I'm usually the first one after they get into contract to actually give them the aha moment, like,
right,
you did it. Okay.
Right.
Congratulations. Take a deep breath. I'm going to take it from here.
Right.
And then typically we get the purchase contract. And I'll talk about my AI platform later, but
right,
we send out a secure portal with intake forms to gather information. We send the escrow deposit wiring instructions to be confirmed. They send the escrow, we send an escrow letter out, and then the transaction begins. We order title, which means that we do the search.
Right.
The search is then given to all parties, and then we move on to the next part of the transaction.
Right. Because, the title is ultimately who owns the property prior to any open, permits, anything,
liens,
judgments, liens,
taxes.
anything, things like that, things
Correct.
that you need to know. So when you're looking at that, there's a lot of things that can come up.
Ton.
But there's times where, maybe there was a death in the family and brother and sister or different people in the family inherit it.
Sure.
But one person lists it, and then you find out, oh, wait, there's another person that needs to be a part of this transaction.
Happens all the time. So our responsibility, and I always say title insurance is the only insurance that's insured backwards.
Right.
So what do I mean by that? So get engaged, you get a ring. You take that ring, you go to an appraiser. The appraiser appraises it, you go get insurance for it.
Right.
The purchase has happened, right? So you're purchasing insurance from the point of getting something and moving forward. With title insurance, we're doing a search
Right.
currently for what happened before the closing. So we're insuring everything from the last transaction till now. Excuse me. So the difference being is that we're making sure that the buyer of this property has a clean bill of health.
Right.
That anything that's come up prior to this transaction from the last insured transaction is raised as part of the title, and we're clearing those items. And what do I mean by clearing? So you said there could be a death in the family. Something could have happened. Who's vested on title then might be not vested now.
Right.
Did it go through probate? Was there a will? Any judgments, any mortgages, any liens that come up on title have to be paid off at the time of closing.
Right.
Right? You own a property, you sell it to me. When I buy it, I have to make sure that it has to be clean.
Right.
And now from the day of closing and recording, moving forward, the next title company, if it's not me again, will have to clear up the issues from the point of sale to the next transaction.
Right.
So it's it's done in succession, but we're insuring everything before.
Right.
So truth be told is a lot of title companies don't do a good job.
I was just going to ask, because the thing is, there's a lot of examples, and I know of, some in particular, people that I know that have gone through things like it gets as granular as open permits, right? Like,
Correct.
yeah, because
Correct.
that is something that someone's living there.
I mean, Florida.
Things are open or things weren't permanent, or whatever. There's a lot of things that can come up in that process. And
Correct.
so if a prior title company just didn't do their job.
That's right. Or we pay off a mortgage and the bank doesn't issue a satisfaction and
Right.
record it. Now that mortgage is going to show open on title. Meanwhile, so we have to go back to the previous title company or get proof that it was paid. We don't use credit reports.
Right.
Just because it's not on credit doesn't mean, you could have a credit line. Don't close the credit line
Right.
and take out more money the day of closing.
Right.
So we have to get freeze letters on the credit line,
Right.
then pay it off. Make sure a satisfaction is recorded. These are all super important factors. If people do a good job, title is easy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Moving forward, I do something in my funding department that most companies don't do that kind of separates us a little bit from
Right.
post-closing issues. I'm very proud to say, and I don't want to jinx myself, but I've done over $12 billion in residential deals since 2020, and I have no claims.
Wow.
So is that typical? Not even close. I have the best ratio in the country as per my underwriters. Ton of business, double eyes on every file. And what I do is I make sure that recording reviews the file prior to funding.
Okay.
Typically in a title company, they want to fund right away.
Right. Get the deal done.
Get the deal done, keep it moving.
Right.
If there's a problem, I'll deal with it after.
Right.
For me, I don't want problems.
Right.
Like, you're a homeowner. You're trusting me with your business, or you're an agent, or you're a banker, or a lender, or whatever the case may be. I have to do my job and make sure that the recordable docs are in good condition.
Right.
Not just fund the deal. So my post-closing issues are, things happen, don't get me wrong, but I have very little post-closing issues. And because of it, I get a lot of consumer direct business. So, what I do want to tell people is, it is your decision as a client. If you're the buyer or seller and you choose title, it's your decision. Of course, I work with agents, and agents want to work with title companies, and lenders want to work with title companies. At the end of the day, it's the borrower's choice or the seller's choice. I have a ton of direct business from people I've closed in the past, and just reputationally over the years, where people call me.
Let's face it, you're everywhere.
I try to be
over the years.
I try to be
everywhere. But no, that's a great point, because people might not realize, they might be working with an agent and they say, oh no, this is the title company. This is just the process where the buyer or the seller, whoever's choosing, can say, no, I want to use.
Correct. Florida is a little bit different. This is a non-attorney state.
Right.
So you don't need an attorney to close a transaction in Florida. On a commercial transaction, I recommend that you have counsel review things. It's a little more cumbersome.
Right.
There's more involved. There's phase ones. There's, engineering reports. And, it's just a different type of transaction. But on a residential regular deal, you don't need an attorney.
But do you recommend one? Well, dealing with you, it doesn't sound like you necessarily need one, but do you...
I'm not an attorney.
Right.
I've never been an attorney, but my experience in closing 60, 70,000 deals in my career, in my opinion, I've seen everything. I can't give legal advice.
Right.
If I run into, and this is what I tell people all the time, especially from the Northeast, where people are, typically you need an attorney.
Right.
In Massachusetts, in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, typically people have attorneys.
Right.
So if you're, and especially during COVID when we had the influx of people, they're used to it.
Right.
In Florida, you don't need it. And I always say we have a strategic counsel that we work with. If something gets hairy, if it's something that we can't control, or we need to get legal involved for whatever purpose it is, at that point I can bring,
Right.
Listen, I'm not going to dissuade people from using counsel if they choose to do so. Obviously, Florida is a different entity. So most attorneys down here, and I always get in trouble for saying this stuff, but most attorneys down here own title companies.
Right. I've seen that a lot. Right.
Which is not typical anywhere else in the country. To me, just to be frank, and I'm an honest guy, I think it's a conflict of interest.
Right.
I think if you're a legal counsel, you should stick to being legal counsel.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of attorneys down here are, because they have the ESQ, are great salespeople, and they convince their client, I won't charge you for the legal, I'll just take the title business.
Right.
Well, how are you protecting someone legally if you're concerned about title?
Right.
To me, an attorney is there to engage for legal counsel. Title is title. Stay in your own lane. And listen, I work with a ton of attorneys.
Right.
Some great, some terrible.
Right.
Typically, you're there to close a transaction and make it as painless as possible while protecting your client.
Right.
I want to give the same protection. You don't need an ESQ to do so. In my opinion, it's experience and getting deals closed and making sure that people are walking away happy. They get what they want. They get honesty. They get good pricing. I'm very cheap. My fees, I don't believe in, hitting a home run on every deal per se. So for instance, there's certain regulated fees in Florida, the premium endorsements to the lender, transfer taxes, any type of mortgage tax, that's all state regulated. The ancillary fees, I don't upcharge.
Right.
So we charge a search fee of $150.
Right.
That's what it costs me. Right. With survey, we provide a service. We lay out the money up front. We collect it at closing. It's not upcharged. The same thing with the lien search. It's not upcharged. To me, we make our money on the premium.
Right.
We stay compliant. And it's about longevity and
creating relationships.
And good business. Yeah. Bottom line.
Absolutely. But when going through all of that, when I think of the attorney side in the title side? Obviously, you're pulling all the reports,
Sure.
finding out all liens, deeds, anything that could come up in the process. But are you guys really going through the contract, like what it says?
Oh,
So,
of course.
so the title is, I mean, you are.
We're the closing agent.
You're the closing agent, so you're making
Correct.
sure there's nothing that the other party could have like snuck in there or things like that. Because when I think of an attorney, that's the purpose of the attorney. So to clarify for people listening, you are going through, and is
100%.
every title company doing that, or is that something that more so you take pride in to make sure that it is clean and a fair purchase?
It's kind of a fiduciary response. First of all, we don't negotiate the terms in the contract.
Right.
In New York, which is completely different, typically a transaction on a purchase is this listing agent sends a deal sheet over to their attorney to create a contract.
Right.
And they're working the contract with the other counsel for the buyer.
Right.
In Florida, the agents do the contracts. Now, one of the things I do differently, like an attorney, is I want to talk to the client if they need help with the contract. I'm not giving them legal advice, but they have questions. We're experts.
Okay.
Some of them are not experts. I have agents that are top-notch agents, and then I have new agents that might not know. There's a lot of rules and regulations as an agent.
Right.
Agents in Florida typically do a lot of work.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they don't get credit for a lot of that because, obviously when all of the, the different rates and how it can be negotiated now and how things are changing, but really it hasn't really changed. It's just more so been brought up front.
Yep.
And people are like trying to say, well, no, I mean, I don't want to pay you this, but they earn it. They're advertising the properties, they're doing all the work, they're doing the open houses, they're going through the closing process, they're taking their time, they're driving,
listen. To me, an agent is super important in a transaction. They have the experience. They have a good agent.
Listen, well, that's every industry.
That's right. Yeah. And truth be told, during COVID, you had a lot of what I call like sister-in-law agents, right? Hey, I want to list my property with my sister-in-law, and we'll put it on MLS, and anybody will buy it. Well, that's great until they have to do something, right? And they have to know the business. And now with the new NAR settlement, there's a lot of different things going on in the industry. The disclosures, there's so much compliance, and you could spend all day long on compliance. It's a lot of work, and they have to be very knowledgeable, and they have to not only know the contract and the law on their real estate side, they have to be able to work with clients that are emotionally attached to a property, that have issues, that have deadlines, and typically, there's stringent deadlines in the contract. You have to have your deposit in by a certain amount. You have an inspection period that has to be abided by. There's different calendar days compared to business days for different items. You have a loan inspection. You have a loan commitment period. There's a lot of factors that come into play. And having a good title company that outlines those and uses their knowledge and technology to abide by the contract and to, communicate. Communication is the number one thing to me. It's all about customer service.
Absolutely.
People have lives.
Well, people do business with people, and, there's a lot of technology out there and it's great.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you want to be able to pick up the phone when you're dealing with, your largest investment that you're going to make typically. But when we're going through everything, so we kind of combed through this before as far as like obviously what your responsibility is. But what are some of the most common issues that affect the title process? Obviously as far as, who owns the property, liens, things like that. But like when you're going, like what are some of those examples that you really have to find that's not just glaring out at you?
So one of the issues that I find, and I just launched something called the closing platform, and it's available through my website at askthetitleguy.com. I did a deal with Black Knight.
Okay.
Black Knight's one of the largest data companies in the world. Okay. What we did was I created an API integration where people can go on, especially for agents that are listing agents, to go on and find the vested owner on title.
Okay.
So who owns the property of record, right? That's a big issue. Agents, and I tell agents when I present all the time, how are you going to sign a listing agreement or a contract if you don't know who owns it?
Right.
I'm sorry to say, but you cannot trust a homeowner to tell you that they own a property.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't sign a listing agreement, who's vested on title, that listing agreement is null and void.
Right.
The same thing with the contract. So I created a platform whereby agents Anyone. It's for free. You sign up, you get a username and password, you go on the website, you plug in the address, and it tells you who the vested owner is. Now, that information is vital for you to prepare a listing agreement. Yes, you can go to other websites. What you can do also on the site is you can get current taxes, you can get a BPO or an AVM, which is a valuation of the property, and you can even get the current mortgage amount on the property.
Okay.
So if you're a listing agent, it's a resource or a tool to go with my app, which I'll talk about later, to get information on the property. That's a first step in the process.
Right.
Bottom line, you have to know if you're going on a listing appointment or executing a contract, who owns the property. That's the first thing.
And to go off of that, and we'll get into the other ones in a second, because deed fraud is something we're hearing about all the time. Right. The property appraiser's office, like Marty Kyer is out there, and he's like, the man at the forefront, like really spearheading these efforts to put it to a stop. But what happens if there is deed fraud and somebody's listing it? And I mean, that's a whole different conversation.
So we've never had this conversation before, and it's funny that you said that. So I launched a company with a partner that I'm about to get my patent on. The first and only.
So we're the first to hear this?
You're the first to hear it.
All right.
The first and only two-factor authentication to record land records.
Wow.
So it took us almost 2 years. There's other companies that monitor, and I won't tell you the name of the company because we're not ready to launch it yet.
Right.
But there's other companies that monitor deed fraud through the counties or whatever the case may be. But that's really great. Hi. How are you, Anthony? Great. Well, somebody just took your house.
Right.
Well, it's a little too late now because it's going to cost you $100,000 to get it back. Maybe you don't have $100,000 in equity.
Right.
So what do? Walk away?
Right.
You have to go to court. It's a huge process. So we have created a system by which a covenant or restriction is added to title when you purchase a property. It's a fee to do so. And the only way to remove that on the next transaction is to do a two-factor authentication process with you, the homeowner, with us at our company, and a third party. So you have to get 3 codes in order to release the deed. So you want to talk about deed fraud protection?
Fraud proof.
It is completely fraud proof.
Wow.
And I've gotten it approved with underwriting counsel to be a requirement on title to remove it, not an exception. Because an exception, you can make a business decision and remove it.
Right.
With a requirement, you can't.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but deed fraud
it's a real problem.
Deed fraud is a $10 billion issue across the United States. I have article after article. It's unbelievable. And in Florida, I could have stolen your property while we're doing this podcast.
Right.
And you would never know. When's the last time you checked your deed?
Couldn't tell you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and most people,
you assume,
of course,
it's yours.
That's right.
Just like anything, but it's not something that is in your face every day. I mean, when you credit cards, you see this, you see statements, you see it, but you don't see anything with your property.
Nobody
from
checks
when you
that.
purchase it to when you sell it.
The only time you're going to check your deed is if you're doing a transaction or you know there's a problem.
Right.
Right. And when that problem exists, it's too late. And it's a very, very, so in order to overturn that, you have to prove that it happened.
Right.
You have to go to court multiple times. You have to, in order to overturn a deed, it's a long process. And
a lot of time it's people taking advantage of maybe somebody that maybe they're not in the right headspace. They're older. They might be sick. There's a lot of situations out there.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
You can own a second home that you don't use very often.
Right.
Or you're a snowbird, and you know what? Somebody drives by the property. They see mail in the mailbox.
Right.
They see never lights on, and they're like, "Oh, this is easy."
Right.
What do? You get a fake. You don't want to give people any pointers, but
Right.
you get a fake notary.
Right.
You execute a fake deed, and it's as simple as just recording it online.
That's wild.
And people take properties all day long. Then they strip the equity, right? If
Right.
nobody's living there, they do a refinance on the property. They take the equity out, they transfer it to another country, and they move out of the country. Now they just stole, X number of dollars.
Right. It's sad. So talking about that, you're about to go into other things that happen.
Yep. So mortgages are
Right.
always a problem. There's older mortgages that were never satisfied, and now the bank has sold the loan or it went out of business. It's not showing up on credit because it's over 8 years old and not paid off, but it's still showing on title.
Right.
So we have to track back to do somebody else's job to clear title. to make sure that because moving forward after us, and a lot of companies Band-Aid problems,
Right.
They have proof, but they don't follow up on the satisfaction to get recorded.
Right.
So now the next transaction is going to be the same problem. Or if somebody's refinancing and we clear the title, now they go to sell, and if we didn't fix the problem, we just Band-Aided it for the transaction, when they go to sell the property, it's going to come up again.
Right.
So we try, and it's tough sometimes. It's really tough. Mortgages stay on for X number of years. Judgments stay on for X number of years. I just helped a friend literally last night with a matter where a judgment was on the head or on the property. It's a New York property. It stays on you as a person for 20 years, but after 10 years, it comes off of the property unless it's refiled. Well, the company that had the judgment didn't refile it for 13 months after it expired.
Wow.
It still shows up on title, but the law is if they don't refile within a 10-year period, and there's a 30-day grace period that they get after the 10 years,
right,
then it's vacated, and you have to go to court to vacate it. But, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your title. It affects you as a person.
Gotcha.
So, these are the little things that show up. In Florida, one of the major issues is, well, it's not an issue, but it's actually a good protector unless you have a bad contractor. But if you go to get work done, you sign a notice of commencement. A notice of commencement is a placeholder that unless the insurer or the underwriter is willing to insure over, it stays as a placeholder on title. Contractors do it because people don't pay.
Right.
So when you sign up or sign a contract, you sign a notice of commencement, it gets recorded, and then in order to release it, the homeowner has to sign a termination, and you need to receive a contractor's affidavit once they're paid in full to release that lien. I think it's a great thing unless you have either a bad contractor that does, now they sign a notice of commencement, it goes on title, they do a bad job, they walk away from the job, and now they're not paid by the homeowner. Now it has to go to litigation. Well, we can't release it unless they release it.
Right.
So it becomes an issue. And then companies,
if they went out of business or whatever, I mean, you're tracking things down. I mean, and to endless points.
I'm dealing with a situation now where it's a small company that's a subcontractor.
Right.
The contractor paid the subcontractor, but they've been away for a week and they haven't gotten the check. And now we call their office and it goes to voicemail. Well, someone's trying to close a transaction. They're clear to close. This is going to, could affect their rate lock. It becomes a problem.
Right.
So if everyone in the industry is professional, I know it's tough to say because that's every industry. Right. But if everybody's on the same page and trying to benefit, I always think of this. At the end of the day, the homeowner is the boss. It's their house. It's their transaction.
Right.
They should be accommodated. And that goes without saying. And you as a professional should have the business etiquette to respect the people that you're working for.
Right.
There's always problems. But if everybody communicated well, we'd have a lot less problems.
Right.
Because people don't answer their phone, they don't respond. It's just, I'm super anal about customer service and response time, and everyone else. Anyone who's ever used me, they know me for my response time.
Right.
I'm except for now because my phone's in the other room. Yeah, right. But typically I'm super responsive. People are waiting for answers.
Yeah.
We're, as you said in the beginning, we're an important part of the transaction. We're the last to know because until something is executed or we get a title order or a contract, we don't know about it.
Right.
But we're the ones who control the transaction at the end of the day. We're funding the transaction. We're doing the closing. We're sending representatives for the seller and the buyer. Florida is different. Right. In Florida, typically the seller signs first. So on a purchase transaction. Why? Because the buyer can't sign before the deed is signed, because how are you going to own a property that wasn't transferred yet?
Right.
So the seller in New York, you can have a closing table with 15 people. Here, we typically go to the seller's home or their business or whatever, whichever most convenient.
Right.
I always said that, people have jobs, they have lives, they have kids, they have responsibilities. We try to work around.
Make it easy on them. Yeah.
Got to make it easy on them. And a lot of people aren't easy to work with.
Right. For sure.
We have to be super accommodating.
Yeah.
I choose not to close unless the bank is okay, if there's a lender with funding the next day. I don't like to do that. So most of my purchase transactions are closed between 1 and 2, the latest between 1 and 2, because we have until 5:30 to fund.
Right.
And that we have to go through a process. Like
absolutely.
everybody wants the keys right away. Oh, my moving truck's outside. Oh, I got to get in there. Right. But you know what? I'd rather protect the transaction and do it the right way. I'm not going to rush anything.
Right.
I'm sorry. You shouldn't have told your moving company to come at 1 o'clock when you have a 12 o'clock closing. Right. Tell them to go get lunch and come back.
Right.
That kind of thing.
No, it's real.
And the same thing with confirming wiring instructions. I will not send one wire out of my office until we have confirmed wiring instructions.
Right.
We're calling every bank to pay them off. We're calling every seller to confirm their wiring instructions. Anyone who deposits money with us, they have to call us first before they send a wire to confirm our wiring instructions. Listen, deed fraud, bank fraud, fraud in general. First of all, Florida is the number one place in the country for it. But it's prevalent everywhere. There's been situations, and then we have to get into the SEC involved. There's 4,000 wire fraud transactions a day nationally.
That's crazy. And a lot of it is just email. I mean, that is easy for somebody to
very simple
change information.
Spoof an email. It shows your name as the sender, and then you click on it, and up it pops. I mean, there's been instances. We caught someone this week. We caught somebody spoofing somebody else's email on the transaction in a chain, and we stopped it right away. Right. But it could have been bad.
It could have been bad. And now you're talking about a lot of money.
That's right. Yeah. And they take the wiring instructions, and typically they keep it in the same format, but they change the bank name.
Right.
They change the account number and the routing number, but they keep everything else the same. So, if you've seen it before, you might say, oh, it looks the same.
Right.
If you don't confirm it, it could be a problem.
And most people, they don't know their information anyway. They just have, it's not like they know it by heart.
Unless you're me. And
unless you're you.
You have to, listen, it takes 2 minutes to protect something that could be taken in 2 seconds.
Right. Without a doubt. And the thing is, like, what I'm getting from you is, so it doesn't matter what you're doing in business. Every industry, everyone wants to feel like they're the most important person in the room.
Sure.
On client space.
But I really am. No, I'm kidding.
That's a given. But, like if someone's selling their home, like they know you're working with a lot of people, but they want to be most important. Sure. But with your response rate, everything that you keep mentioning, you truly put the client first. You truly put every single person above everything, which that translates to future business over and over, because at the end of the day, doing business with somebody, it doesn't need to be complicated. It shouldn't be complicated. There are complicated parts of a process, but dealing with someone that's thorough, that cares, and that's on top of it, that's what keeps coming as far as the way that you're answering this and what really stands out in the importance of your business.
Sure. Well, referral business in any business is the most important thing, right? So if everybody walks away from a transaction happy and their last memory, which is of the closing and the fun, like I can do the best job possible on the title. I can get it to you quick. I can clear it quick. I can get everything back. I can work with everyone perfectly. If the closer shows up late, it's a reflection on me, on the agent, on everyone. So we want to, and listen, there's so many variables in a transaction. Everything's going great, and then the walkthrough happens, and a tile is cracked, and now you have to draw an escrow letter, and hold money back, and there's always a problem. And problems are going to happen. It's how you respond to the problem.
Right.
It's keeping everyone peaceful, because, like I said, emotions come into play, anxiety comes into play. Oh, my family's coming this weekend. I got to get in there. Whatever the situation is.
Right.
If everybody walks away from the transaction happy, then it's a happy transaction.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. And unfortunately, people are short-sighted.
Right.
They don't know. They forget. And things happen. A closer gets into an accident. I mean, you try driving on 95.
Yeah, right.
If certain things happen, you have to be able to handle it, and you have to be able to navigate and communicate. I never avoid phone calls. There's a lot of people you call, it goes to voicemail, and they don't call you back.
Right.
Like, oh, hello. What's going on here? We're trying to close on a house. At the end of the day, like you said before, it could be the biggest purchase transaction or sale transaction. You don't know how important it is.
Right.
It's not your business to know. You have to handle everything even keel and make sure that everyone is happy.
Absolutely.
And whatever, I'm a firm believer in whatever it takes. This is our business. My business, to make everyone happy and to do a quality, professional, and compliant closing.
Right. And you mentioned, especially during COVID, there was a lot of doing a deal with their aunt or their sister or sister-in-law, whatever it is, brother-in-law, getting the right title company, because referrals are important.
Sure.
But say if after hearing this, people are going to realize how important the title company is.
Sure.
In the process of it and what goes into this. Are there specific questions that somebody should know to ask a title company that will indicate that they are the right one? Like, obviously, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge, experience, everything. You've seen everything. I'm sure there's always new things, but you can relate it to any past experience.
Yep.
But what should people know to ask a title company to make sure that they're going to do the best job and get to the end goal?
Well, first of all, I think online services, being able to research a company, being able to talk to, make sure that first of all, you should be working with a good agent, right? That works for a good firm. Not, it doesn't mean that a boutique firm that doesn't have the manpower or marketing capabilities or isn't on every billboard or on every TV show, or doesn't mean that they're not great. Doesn't mean the agent is not great, but you have to know who you're working with. Just as if you were going to hire a handyman to come to your house.
Right.
Just, you call an HVAC company, you want to work with someone professional. So doing the research, you go to my website, you can see the things that I do, and also the people that I work with. I work with top agents all over the country. Top agents don't work with bad title companies.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, it complicates their process. They want to close deals.
Truth be told is the best agents and the worst agents, their job is not to do my job.
Right.
I'm not a real estate agent. I don't sell houses. I close deals. So, I tell agents, once the transaction is underway and we have all the information, if I need you, I'll be in touch.
Right.
Right? It's a process. I might not talk to a seller. Let's say it's a 30-day closing. We talk to them initially. We get their information. We run title. We send the documents we need to send. Let us do our job. Most people, we communicate throughout the process, but I might not talk to them for a week and a half.
Right.
Right? They're still like, oh, is everything okay? It's very important to communicate with everyone, to communicate. And I tell agents, the more time you spend on my business, the less time you spend selling houses, the less money we both make.
Right. Exactly.
Right? I'm here with one phone call, one text message, one email. Response time is there. You can trust me. I always say, trust the title guy. And it's important, to know that you can pick up the phone at 8:00 at night and get me on the phone, or at 7 a.m. I'm up at 4:00 every day. That's my schedule. Right. And I work all day. Work is my life, besides my family, obviously. And going to gym or do whatever I got to do.
Right.
That's my job. And some people have, a lot of people have responsibilities. They have families. They, most agents today, I just heard an interesting fact that like 49% of agents didn't even close a deal this year.
Wow.
It's been a rough market.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough out there. People are trying to make ends meet.
And what are you seeing in today's market? COVID was like a gift to the home industry. Like
Florida
it was on fire.
I would wake up to 20, 30 contracts on the weekends.
Wow.
Which is insane. And I'm also very caring of my staff. I don't want to burn them out.
Right.
I take a lot on myself. So I would process files and do what I got to do to maintain the sanity, because it was insane.
Right.
Things have slowed down, 60, 70%. There's major issues with condos and the condo market.
100%.
From the Surfside incident, which caused, 30 and 40 year certs to have to get redone. Special assessments are killing homeowners.
Yeah.
The insurance is a disaster. The HOAs, a lot of them are crooked, unfortunately. You're seeing stuff now. How is it possible that 5 years ago I built a building, everything was up to code. Now 5 years later, there's a $30 million assessment.
Right.
On 100 units. Well, that's a lot of money per unit.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you're asking a client who's maybe has a fixed income. Your grandmother owns the property free and clear. She's using her income from Social Security, from retirement, whatever the case may be, to pay the HOA, to pay the taxes, to pay the insurance. Now the insurance tripled. Now you have a special assessment. So you're seeing a lot of condo buyouts. People just can't afford to live there anymore.
Right.
Cost of living, has gone up considerably. A lot of carriers for insurance pulled out of the state. Now we just got a few back, thank God. But, insurance is very difficult. Then you have financing issues. Banks don't want to lend on condos because of problems. So, if it's a non-warrantable condo and it's not, means that the banks will only lend on it with different parameters, not your standard parameters, which means that it's 51% occupied by investors.
Right.
Maybe the HOA doesn't have enough surplus in their funds to support the condo questionnaire. And then you have bankers out there that do what I call the bait and switch. They do a condo, it's non-warrantable, but they're quoting the rate and the terms on a warrantable basis. Now they submit to the condo questionnaire, and the condo questionnaire comes back, and the condo questionnaire says it's non-warrantable with their bank. Now everything changes.
Right.
Well, it's 20 days into the process by the time you got it back, because HOAs are typically not good, so their response time stinks, and they don't do their proper homework. When I get a condo, I search the building. My processors go online and see if there's a conventional lender in the building and how the lender is doing this product. Is it non-warrantable? Because what happens is we're going to get 20 days into the process. Now we're within 3 days of the loan commitment period. Now, Fannie's guidelines say, you have to put 25% down, but now it's non-warrantable. Now you got to put 30. Well, not everybody has 5% extra to put down.
Right.
Now the rate went up, so their loan to value changes, their DTI or debt to income ratio changes. Now it becomes more expensive. Well, now they're not approved because they can't afford that extra $2,000 a month in their payments based on their income. These are all real issues that happen every single day. So once again, if everybody's professional and does their job and doesn't try to slam the deal through and give false information or not the proper information, these issues are real issues.
Right.
So, having a good title company to protect the buyer, the real estate agent might not know either.
Right.
Not everybody knows this stuff. So having professionals to work with, I'll call the lender right away.
Right.
Hey, did you quote this as warrantable? I noticed that, Citibank or any conventional lender has never lent in this building. You get that.
Right.
And, you got a lot of new loan officers or bankers that just don't know either. And they don't do their research, or they're not knowledgeable enough because they don't choose to be, or they just don't know.
The other thing that as you're, I'm hearing all these different things, and obviously these big developments, and there's some big builders, I'm not going to mention their names, but all these spec homes, $1 million homes, multi-million-dollar homes, they're using their own financing company. They'll have their own lending company. They'll have interest in it. They have all of it. Yeah. So I fell into this process. I was buying into a brand new development, spec home, brand new development, everything. So when it got to closing, everything was good. I had no problems, zero. And then literally within hours, they're like, oh, we need to see this again, or we need to see that again. And then all of a sudden it's this big process, and they try to rush you to the point where you're not really looking at things. And then it affects rates, it affects everything. And then I caught them on it. And then all of a sudden in the 10th hour, everything was good.
Well, they want their money, so they're going to give you an extra credit for $1,000. But why should you go through that stress?
Right.
You're the one who put up the $200,000 to purchase.
You already paid it. Yeah,
you already paid it.
Right.
Well, nothing should come up last minute until, and I'm not going to say nothing. When we do a transaction, we run what's called a title Contin.
Right.
So from the point that we order the title to the point that we give the commitment is a search. Right. Whatever's recorded, we turn out and we give in our commitment. The day before closing, when we know the closing date, we order what's called a rundown or a Contin. That is a search that covers everything from the last search recorded date till that date.
Right.
Well, you got a judgment in between.
Right.
Maybe a violation popped up or a lien popped up. Think about it. It could be 2 months.
Yeah.
So we run a new search. Maybe you took out a home equity line of credit on your property.
Yeah.
These are the factors that are super important. And from a developer standpoint, developers give credits to use their entities, right? Incentives. They incentivize to use title, to use their bank, some of which are beneficial.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. But the only positive about using someone in-house is that if they're geared towards that development, they might have specific portfolio products that benefit that development or that building, which is a benefit, a longer lock rate, which is a great issue now because we know that rates are coming down. So maybe you lock in with a float for a year and a half or 2 years, most banks are 24 to 48 months.
Right.
If it's a portfolio product and you're a jumbo borrower or an A-paper borrower, maybe there's incentives that will benefit you because of that portfolio product.
Right.
If it's Fannie, if it's Freddie, if it's a broker, these are all products that most people have access to. So you're not really benefiting by using the in-house. Listen, I live in a community also. The community owned a title company. I take a lot of business from that title company because
probably saw your name. We're like, we got to figure something out.
Him again,
Right.
Especially since I moved in my community because they give a credit of $3,000, $3,500.
Right.
Well, I know what their credit is. If the purchase price is high enough, because what happens is they give a discount by giving you a credit, but don't tell you that they're adding $2,000 in fees on a $3,500 credit, where my fees are now $2,000 less, and I could find the difference to beat the deal.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors.
But some people need to know to look for that.
Of course,
they're not. I mean, so what line item should people be looking for, or
the title insurance premium in every state is state regulated.
Okay.
So there are certain states across the country that are called bid states,
Yeah.
but very few. Most of them are promulgated and they're based on a purchase price or a loan amount.
Okay.
So in Florida, if you purchase a home with financing, the purchase price is an owner's fee policy. Then there's a lender's policy. If you purchase them together, then the lender's policy is called a simultaneous policy, which is only a $25 charge.
Gotcha.
So they say after Dodd-Frank that owner's title insurance is optional. That's what they have to put on there.
So who pays for the title insurance? The owner, or
it depends on the county.
Okay.
But regardless, everyone should take title insurance. And I'm not saying that because it's my business.
Right.
If you don't take title insurance, you're not protected as a homeowner.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Well, what will it protect you for?
It will protect you from anything that comes up
Throughout the
process.
Okay.
Maybe a judgment was misindexed.
Right.
And recorded in a different county. Well, now you have a policy because if I didn't do my job, I didn't search properly.
Right.
There's a lot of problems like that where people they do quick searches, or they don't use the proper examiners, and they don't turn out issues. These issues are real issues and can come up. That's what title claims are for.
Right.
So,
and the insurance will protect.
That's correct. If not, you're not protected.
Right.
So I say to people, well, I don't want to pay the $3,000 in title insurance. You're buying an $800,000 house.
Right.
If you bought an $800,000 ring, wouldn't you get it insured?
Right.
Right? Don't you get expensive transaction? Regardless of the purchase price, it's going to cost you a lot more money in the long run.
Absolutely.
And then what they say is, I don't want the owner's policy. Well, if you don't take the owner's policy and you're getting a mortgage, the policy amount changes for the lender. It's not $25 anymore.
Right.
So by not taking an insurance and getting the simultaneous, maybe it costs only an extra $300, right? Because if not, the lender's policy will be that much more.
Right. Exactly.
So now you're not paying $300 to be protected on a $400,000 purchase.
Yeah.
It just
doesn't make sense.
Right.
So
people look at it
take the insurance.
Take the insurance. Ask the title guy.
Right.
Because you don't have the protection, and that's what insurance companies are for. At the end of the day.
And going through everything that we're talking about, you're simplifying the process. And you mentioned a few times as far as your own platforms.
Yep.
How you're changing the way that the industry is not only being looked at, but what the process looks like. Let's dive into that in the sense of the technology that you guys are developing, the purpose for it, how accessible it is, and ultimately how it's changing the game.
So when I came down to Florida, I launched the brand Ask the Title Guy. It came about because everybody asked me for a lot of different things in the
people
industry.
don't know.
They need a lender, they need an appraiser, they need a home inspector. So everybody was asking me. So I'm like, I got to open something. Ask the Title Guy seems like a good brand and a good platform. So on my website, I have a ton of different resources and information. I do a lot of social media as the title guy. I've had TV shows in the past and work with some top agents, of course, and top lenders and attorneys throughout the country. for both commercial and residential and 1031,
Right.
which I'll talk about in a second. But what I try to do, besides providing great customer service, is be a resource. So as we spoke before, title is always, and closing is the X factor, right? All they see is the closing costs. Oh my God, they're making so much money, right?
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, what agents don't do a great job of is getting information outside of the realm of what they do. So, and this is not everyone. So, you could have an agent that does it. My app is free. It allows for anyone, and you can access it on my website at askthetitleguy.com.
In the name of your app.
It's Ask the Title Guy. It's
Okay.
a web app,
Okay.
so you can take it and put it on your phone.
Perfect.
I tell agents all the time, go to my app. It's free. Put it on your phone. I have instructions on there. It's a simple process, and it allows you to create buyers and sellers estimates and other items. So if you're a buyer as a consumer and you want to know what it's going to cost, you can literally go on my app, type in the information, the purchase price, the taxes, the HOA, and it tells you real time. So if you're a listing agent and you're going to a property, you want to, number one, go to the closing platform, know who the
Right.
owners of the property are, so you're signing a listing agent properly, a listing agreement properly, and a contract eventually properly. You also want to provide the data that you might not be able to get, or typically get. So agents are very good at how they're going to market the property, their market, what they've done, who they are and their accolades and the company's accolades. But people want to know what I'm going to make.
Right.
You're selling your house. I have a mortgage. I have taxes. I have this. I have that. How much am I walking away with? So it gives you that data. It allows you to plug in the numbers and literally click a button.
Rather than being surprised at the end.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you know right from the beginning.
Right.
It also gives you something cool called sell to net. So let's say, for instance, you need to make $500,000 on your sale. You can work backwards. You could put in exactly what you need to make and the rest of the parameters, and it'll tell you, after everything is said and done, what you have to sell that property to make that money.
So this app is incredible. Obviously, agents and everybody, they all should be using it.
Right.
But homeowners, if they're just thinking about selling the property,
correct,
get on there. But more so, flippers, investors, people. So that way, they know their business, but this leaves nothing to question.
It's completely accurate. It does refinances in every state in the country that I do business in.
Right.
I'm not licensed on the West Coast, a few states. Purchase business, it runs in most of the states that I do purchases that are not too many variables. So
right.
Maryland is one state that's just very difficult to get the right numbers. There's different recording fees and different transfer taxes for different counties, and it's a little more cumbersome, like I said. So
right.
it'll say, please contact the title guy and give my information. But you want to run a purchase quote in Florida, it literally, if you have the proper information, you could put commissions in there, transaction fees. If there's anything ancillary that you need to
right.
put it, and you put it in there, you press calculate, and there it is. You can download it as a PDF. You can email it. Agents could brand their own searches. So literally I get calls. I got 2 calls 2 nights ago
right.
at 8:00 at night. Glenn, I totally forgot. I'm driving to an appointment. Can you do me a favor? Or I have an appointment at 8:00 tomorrow morning. I'm going to text you the parameters. Can you email me a quote? No problem. Done.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I try to make agents do it themselves. Most agents are type A personalities and
right.
want everything done yesterday, which is fine. So here's the tools.
So you're the assistant for how many agents?
I think I have 14,000 people signed up
there
for my app. But
right.
Not everybody uses it.
Right.
People are like, oh, it's great, but I don't have time.
Right.
All right, I'll do it.
Right.
It is what it is. I'd rather be accurate and tell people the truth
right.
and give them the data that they need. If something pops up because ancillary after the fact, then shit happens.
Right.
But
more or less, it's within that range. Yeah.
Whatever you plug in is going to be accurate.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. If you leave out your commission, that's your problem.
Right.
You don't have to put everything in there. Whatever you put in, it will calculate it. It'll prorate taxes. It'll prorate HOA dues based on whatever closing date you put in there. Gotcha. It's really, really great. And I try to dumb it down to make it really user friendly for everyone.
Right.
Because homeowners need to know too.
And this seems like, obviously the app and just technology in general, like how has AI helped or influenced your business? Yep. How are you implementing it? Like, AI is the talk of everything right now.
So AI is a big term, right. I'm not going to use a Kamala Harris line, but, truth of the matter is it's as much as you want it to be. So title it has a lot of variables. One of the most important things is security when it comes to closing. You want things secure. You want secure portals. So what happens now, and there's multi uses for the technology that I just launched. It started in Florida. So Kensington Vanguard is the largest privately held company in the United States.
Right.
I'm building with my team the technology for Kensington Vanguard. Wow. I built it before, or I worked with a platform to help me build it and customize it. The new platform allows you to get, instead of intake forms being sent manually and emails being sent manually, everything is automated based on the initial information. So when we get a contract, we plug in all the information for the buyer's agent, seller's agent, or listing agent, buyer, seller, and anyone else in the transaction, maybe a transaction coordinator, maybe a lender. Everyone is plugged into the system. Once that system is plugged in and we're ready to process the file, we send out a secure portal for, let's call it the seller, to click on. The seller clicks on it and they get everything that they need. They're going to answer a slew of questions that we need to know. They can upload documents. They can upload a license, a passport, entity docs, LLC docs, a trust, right to our portal, like you're doing a telehealth where you're filing for a passport. It's less cumbersome than all the nonsense that you get from other title companies.
Right.
It's super professional. It's super clean, and everyone gets a link to their own at the same time. So throughout the transaction, and that's the way we communicate outside of communication.
Right.
And what it does is it allows my processing time, because all of that data now, when you click submit, it goes and it's mapped through an API integration directly to my software. No more data entry.
Really?
Nothing. And this is, I won't say it's proprietary because there's other companies that use it, but no one in Florida. And I just started it in Florida and I just launched it in September. So now it's full-fledged. The last phase of it is the AI will read the real estate contract. So no more initial data entry either, because every contract looks the same on a residential deal, right? The only difference is the fields, which remain the same, change numerically, or the name of the parties.
Right.
So and everything is double checked. So my processors, instead of doing data entry, will just verify.
Right.
It saves 30% of time. It goes right into my software. The more time we save on menial tasks, not that it's not important, but data entry, if it can be done through AI and it's quality and it's done right and it's double checked,
absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
It gives me more time to concentrate on customer service.
Absolutely.
And my bandwidth is stronger. It's all secure through portals, wiring instructions. Everything sent is secure. It goes directly to us. Our doc storage is secure. It's a great process. It makes it's mobile friendly. So you can literally be sitting in your car waiting to pick up your daughter on the car line and fill out a form.
Right.
Like, it's just really easy. It's not some nonsense PDF that you have to print, fill out, scan, send back.
That's tedious. I mean, that's the biggest thing that holds up every process
Of course.
in any business. I mean, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, right?
And then the communication is sent out. So when a title commitment is done, we press a button, it goes out to everyone.
Right.
When the escrow deposit letter is ready, we upload it, we press a button, it goes out to everyone.
I'm picturing you at your desk with this big button.
Yeah, it's not for Diet Coke. Yeah.
Send it.
Truth be told is I don't really get involved in the transactional stuff. My staff, but when I said in the beginning that I work for my staff, I've been building this now for almost 2 years to get through legal and compliance and everything else, with the vendor that's helping me build it and my processors and along the phases. But what I did was I have a lot of creative technology in my brain from doing this for 20 some odd years. That is not boilerplate.
Right.
So I've, enhanced that IP, which I now own, to build the template system into the creative system I want. And I'll give you a quick, for instance, just yesterday, we finalized the homestead letter. So homestead is due by March 1st.
Right.
You have to apply to get on your primary residence, if it's not an LLC, to get savings on your taxes, right? So do you know how to file for homestead?
I mean, I do, but only because I've done it a bunch of times. But yeah, but the average person, they have no idea. They don't even think about going to it. And the other reason is because we were so close with Marty Kyer. It's constantly reminded. Like he's always saying, make sure you file by this date. No, like, but other than that, I would have no idea.
So a lot of companies don't care.
Right.
They close a deal, they keep it moving.
Right.
For us, we always, every January 2nd, when we get back to the office, we're starting to send out all the information that's needed. We send out a homestead letter with the county websites and the recorded deed. Now what I've done is I've created a system because you can't do anything until the mortgage or the deed is recorded, right? So now when a deed is recorded in Simple File or whatever the program we're using, an alert goes to my policy department to create the policy. Because in Florida, you can't create the policy until the deed is recorded, right? As soon as the deed is recorded, it triggers an internal notification to my policy department. Policy department does the policy, uploads it. That triggers a notification to my post-closing QC department. Now, once they get that, they review the documents and press a button. The button sends the homestead letter with the information on how to file, a copy of the warranty deed that was recorded, a copy of the title policy, and whatever other documents that weren't sent post-closing gets sent to the buyer in a secure portal with a link that they can apply for homestead.
Right.
Nobody does that.
No.
Literally,
they don't care. Well, they don't care.
Well, they don't care, number one. And if they do it, usually it's manual.
Right.
You know how much work that is when you're doing 1,000 files a month or 500 files a month? It's a ton of work. Once again, if you can use technology to your benefit and have eyes, because you can't use AI in my opinion, in a business unless you have eyes reviewing it. In my type of business, I'm sure other businesses you can.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in ChatGPT.
Right.
With the AI part of it is automating.
It's meant to simplify and make it easier, but it is not
it's not foolproof.
There are mistakes. I mean, but
100%.
you can't 100% rely on it because
Once again, as long as you have a set of eyes or four, researching and checking the files prior to clicking the submit button and making sure that the data is correct. The AI work is the data collection.
It speeds up the process.
So that's the end of our system now. After you close and fund, sending out that documentation to homeowners. And I can't tell you how many times I get an email back, Glenn, it's February 27th. Thank you so much for sending this.
Right.
I might have saved somebody, thousands of dollars.
Question: is this technology something that you're licensing out?
No.
Proprietary to you.
So the technology itself is a company out of the Midwest.
But you've customized it.
So just like you use I'm an Android user, right? But whatever phone you use, if it's a smartphone, if you're only using it to make phone calls, you could use any phone.
Right.
But if you're using a technology that the phone allows you to use or enhanced technology with apps and everything else, you take that basic phone to another level.
Right.
I've taken the AI platform that's a boilerplate platform and built it and customized it to my use.
Right.
No, nobody's doing this stuff, and I won't tell you anything else.
Well, they don't
steal my shit,
but they don't want to put the time in because it's all time. You have to put time.
It's taken me 2 years to get it to get it perfect. I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
There's no reason to do something unless you're going to do it the right way.
Right.
And it can't have drama.
Right.
Mistakes happen, but getting technology and perfecting it. Listen, any technology that you launch, especially if you market it and it doesn't work,
right? Oh yeah,
you just blew your opportunity to use that technology in a successful manner.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, the business hasn't been so busy compared to what it was.
Right.
So the benefit of that, it allows me to use my creative thinking and be able to work with my people to build it out. Because if it was super busy, I would never have the time to.
Yeah, but everything that you've put in place, busy or not, and your team and your process and everything, it's allowed you to work on your business versus just work in it. I mean, you're in 100%. It, but this is giving you the opportunity to expand your business because, things come in cycles. It's going to start, rates are going to come down. Things are always changing.
Starting to happen already.
The reality is there's always a buyer. There's always a seller. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just a matter of working with the right people. But it's incredible what you've done for your business, your career, your team, the industry. I mean, your knowledge. I mean, that's everything.
Sure.
Something that we really are focused on. It's individuals, it's brands, it's authority figures within the trade. And you're not an authority figure unless you're educating, unless you're putting information out there. You're just in it and you can have the best kept secret. But at the end of the day, it's all about letting people know how to do it and, what a process should look like. Because there's enough business for everybody. Obviously, it's great if all the business goes to you. But at the same time, if you're educating the end user, the homeowner, the seller,
sure,
the agents, anyone that's out there, you're improving the industry.
I can't agree more. I have no problem training people. I never thought it was a great idea. I never talk bad about other companies,
right?
No matter if they're a bad company or not.
Right.
I don't think it's professional. I don't think it's proper. But I will tell a homeowner that you're not using an A-rated company,
right?
Or hey, what I can't stand, and I have very cheap fees,
right,
across the board. I'm cheaper on my closing fees.
Well, it's proper fees. You're not.
Well, there's something
price gouging. You're not
right,
taking
but
advantage.
there's fees that, like a settlement fee or a closing fee, is not regulated by TIRSA or the insurance department. So you can charge kind of whatever you want.
Right.
Right. The industry standard is one thing. I don't give away the house.
Right.
But I cover my cost for a notary. I just got 4 different estimates from 4 different companies from a homeowner that was shopping. He sent me all the estimates. Can you beat these? I look at them and I'm like, okay, you wanted the truth? I printed them all and I redlined what was legal and was not legal.
Right.
So in Florida, you're not allowed to charge a title exam fee. It's illegal.
Right.
It's part of the premium. That's it.
Right.
You're not allowed to charge a dock prep storage fee. That's a nonsense fee, right? People.
What other things do you not charge? I mean, this is great because people need to know when they're looking at this.
So I charge a settlement fee. My settlement fee is $5.95.
Right.
You're in the state of Florida, unless it's a third-party Ron notary or it's an extra notary for the transaction, the notary has to be part of your settlement fee. So I charge a $5.95 fee, including the notary fee. Most companies are $7.95 is the cheapest out there, and that's very rare to find.
Right.
Mostly $9.95 to $2,500. If you're charging a closing fee and you're an attorney, you shouldn't be charging a closing fee to the company and then a closing fee to the title company unless you're doing legal.
Right.
Right. So there's different parameters. I try to keep it simple. We charge a title search fee of $150. That's my cost. It's $100 for a search and $50 for the continuation.
Right.
A $5.95 closing fee, including the notary fee. A $50 FedEx and a $50 recording service fee to record. That's it.
Right.
Outside of the government fees.
It's extremely transparent.
There's no junk. That's where companies make, quote unquote, extra money.
Right.
I don't believe it's right.
Right.
You know what? I'd rather have you as a client and your kids and your brother and your sister and everyone else for the rest of my career than making an extra $300 a file.
Right.
It's just not important to me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right. So we're very transparent. Everything's on my website. If you calculate the same fees that are on my website and on my app are the same fees that we use in my office. So if you wanted to do a quote, unless something changes,
right,
everything
that's
remains
what it
the
is.
same. That's
and your
what it is.
And your website is for everybody?
AskTheTitleGuy.com. That's ASK title, TITLEGUY.com. It's the same thing with my social media, Instagram and Facebook and everything. And it's all Ask the Title Guy.
It's awesome. And we've talked about a lot today. Is there anything that we missed? Anything you want to plug in here?
I want to thank you guys. I think you do an amazing job. We've attended your home shows. They're awesome. You guys are very cordial. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience and inform anyone. And I'd love to speak to people, obviously, and give them knowledge or help them in any way. And I don't have to get the deal every time. What I can't stand and happens all the time is somebody will send my quote to somebody else.
Right.
Well, your attorney is charging you an extra $1,000, or your title company that I don't know you're from a hole in the wall.
Right.
These are my fees. This is where they stand. So I don't negotiate.
Right.
There's a reason we do what we do.
Right.
There's a reason that we protect our clients, that we have no claims, that we're the biggest title company out there. We do commercial, we do residential, We do any type of transaction. We have a 1031 exchange company, Legal 1031, who's one of the top in the industries. They are amazing. So if you're an investor and have an investment property and you're selling and purchasing something new, we're a qualified intermediary. And for the investors out there, they know, Legal 1031 is one of the best platforms there is. And they're one of our sister companies, subsidiaries. Kensington Vanguard is, we're a prominent firm in the industry. So I want to say thank you again.
Absolutely. And I thank you for coming in here. And I mean, it's amazing seeing just all the information that you put out there, what you're doing for individuals, for the industry, for brokers, agents, everyone out there. And you're really just educating, setting the bar, and as far as what the industry should be. And that's most important. You're doing the right thing, and you're here for the long run.
Yep.
And volume,
Absolutely. So. And, in a changing market, refinances are coming back.
Absolutely.
Rates are starting to drop a little bit.
You need title for refi.
You need title for refis. You need title for purchases. Title insurance is something that you have to have.
Right.
Or your lender has to have on a refi, because they're, you're paying for it, but they're protected to get first lien position. And then an owner's policy where you're purchasing title insurance for yourself or for your sale.
Absolutely. And again, best way for everyone to reach you?
AskTheTitleGuy.com.
Awesome. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for being here. It was absolutely amazing hearing the insight, hearing about the industry, how you started, how you got into the industry, how you've evolved your own business, evolving the industry, bringing technology and everything else. I can't thank you enough. But for all of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in. We are Florida's premier home design and home improvement marketplace. Visit all the home design and remodeling shows in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. You can check out our website at homeshows.com. Follow us at FL Home Shows. Subscribe to our channel and get all of the latest in home design and home improvement. But until next time, stay tuned for the next episode.